Hi everybody and welcome to today's video. In today's video I am going to be sharing the newest addition to my Traveler's Notebook collection. This is my Christmas edition and has been a long time in the making. This is the final product, but this is my copy. I accidentally got a water spot on it, and then when I was flipping through it I bent the cardstock. So this is my copy. This is what I'm keeping for myself. So I thought I would just flip through this with you, and I do have the original right here that I physically worked in, and I want to kind of show you the print difference just a little bit, just so that you guys can see and understand the difference in what this is. So first of all, you can see that the thickness is a little bit thicker. The paper that I am using is a lot thicker than the paper that was in the original. And the reason that I chose a much thicker paper is because it is fountain pen friendly, and I can prove it because I have the insert that I made previously to this in here. And I have been journaling in it for the month of November, and the last 2 days I have used some fountain pen, and I just want to show you. There's like very little shadowing, but there's no real bleed through. Obviously you can't see anything on this side because I wrote on it, but this is a heavy bleeding pen. Like this pen, I can't use it for anything, and I decided to test it on this one, and you can see very little shadowing. Once I actually write in here like I did on this side, you won't even be able to see it. So that is why I chose to use that paper again. So let's just go ahead and start flipping through this. I chose a different cardstock than I did with my original insert, the first one. Let me see, I don't have it, here it is. So with the first insert I used just like a really light, smooth cardstock, and with this one I went with a textured, darker cardstock. And the reason that I did that is I wanted to differentiate between the two inserts, but I also wanted to have a little, just a little more class to it. So just gonna make sure I am in frame for this flip through. So here is the cover page, and it has a vintage ledger on the front, and it's not meant to go corner to corner. It is meant to look like it is sitting on the page. And then it has a calendar page right here, which is actually the correct calendar for this year, because Christmas is on a Wednesday this year, so that's fantastic. And just to kind of show you a little bit, this is the original. So there is a little bit of a print difference, but in my opinion, you can't really tell. I actually prefer this one a little bit better to this one, just because this one feels like very pink and bright and like springy, and the colors on this tend to tone it down a little bit and make it feel a little bit more like Christmas. So the first page here, we have a calendar that I hand wrote in here, so it's got a handwritten vibe, and I went Monday through Sunday and left it completely undated with just two little things on here with the December bit, and I'm sorry for the light variance. I live in Florida, we have clouds. And then a note thing right here. So I like the feel of this. It gives it a very handwritten vibe, because that's the whole point of the journal. Once this is all filled out and complete, it will be full of handwritten memories, and I just felt like having a computer generated calendar would just kind of stick out and not fit very well in the notebook. So that's why I did a handwritten one. This next page is intended to keep track of a couple of things. So I have to remember what I wanted to do now originally. So I think this is to keep track of events. So in my mind, I had the date here checked off if we did it, the name of the event, or maybe where. And then this page I had intended for traditions. So you just write in traditions on the Denison label, and then write in any traditions that you and your family do every single year. On this page I had intended for gift giving. There's some price tags here, and this to and from gift tag with like a receipt page in the background. And then this is meant to keep track of the gifts that you purchase and are going to be giving out. And then this one is meant to be used for cards, incoming and outgoing cards. I always do a tip-in on this page. I write down the cards that we receive on the actual paper, and then the cards that I send, I use on a thinner Tomoe River paper. And it just gives a textural feel to that, but you could easily divide the page right down the middle and make a list of who you sent cards to and who you got cards from. And then I wanted to use a very postally feel for this, so I have this mail early, use zip code in, oh, I should turn my phone on silent. And it's in red and green, which I think is great. And then we've got some Christmas postage stamps here. And then this is the last page that I pre-decorated with an idea in mind for it. This is meant to be for decorating for Christmas. Obviously it says deck the halls, and then some, a Christmas tree thing with a Christmas tree definition. And this is meant for the things that you do maybe before December starts. I know what my family and we decorate the last weekend in November. And so that typically happens, like I said, before December begins. And so I like to have those memories kind of written before the month of December begins. And so that's kind of what I've got these 2 pages in here for. So you can document decorating for your house, getting ready, decorating your tree, maybe writing in the new ornaments that you got for your kids this year. Anyway, that's how I decorated with how I would like to use it. And how I think it would be useful to kind of keep track of things, because I love going back and looking at these specific things every year. And so I thought that would be helpful. So from here on out, the pages are designed without anything in mind except for your memories. So I, again, was very thoughtful on how I wanted to leave a space for you to be able to write in a date. So we've got maybe an introductory area right here with an area to put the date. You could put the date in this little bit. And then everything just sort of flows on. There's always a tiny little space for you to be able to write it in. And the print quality, I think, is fantastic. It is done with a laser printer. And so sometimes you lose a little bit of the definition, but the guy that I work with is really, really aware of making sure that the edges, it still looks like how I intended it to be, like something was glued onto the surface. So with this, you can see you're still going to get that texture. It's still going to look like a piece of paper sitting on top of a piece of paper. You cannot tell the difference, in my opinion. I really love the printed version. You don't have to worry about, your hand swiping across and ripping something up. You don't have to worry about ruining something. It's on the page forever. So I think, to me, that that look of having something permanently on the page is just really fantastic. So I was also super aware of how I laid everything out on the page so that it seemed to kind of flow across, and that I wasn't filling up the same parts of the paper. So for example, right here I filled this top left corner. When I did this, I went back and looked to make sure there was nothing in the top left corner for a couple of pages, so that it didn't seem like I was repeating the same thing. And then I did the same for this. Did I have anything in the middle? No, I haven't really had anything in the middle. I've had everything in corners, so it felt like it was appropriate to do that. And then on this side, I hadn't done anything in the middle, so it felt appropriate that I could do that. I was just really hyper aware. And I think that's what took the most time, is I had the supplies, I had the ideas, I wasn't worried about that. I was just wanting to make sure that I was constantly flipping through the notebook and making sure that I wasn't putting things in places that seemed overly repetitive, because I wanted it to be different on each page. So I think I did a pretty decent job. You be the judge of that and let me know. I also did not want to take up a whole lot of space. Like this one, for example, I kind of laid it out with the intention that maybe you guys would go to a school play or any kind of event. And so I wanted to leave enough space for you to maybe put your own ticket stubs or your own photos and your journaling. So on some of the pages, I have filled up a pretty good amount of space. And then on some of the pages, I have left them pretty bare. I was just being hyper aware of how people might want to use the notebook. So I hope that it comes across that way. I hope that you guys are kind of liking the vibe. I love using this vintage wrapping paper. This is an old grid paper. And then I had, you know, the vintage wrapping paper was just my absolute favorite to work with because you can see the texture in it and it's just fantastic. Another thing that I did, I like this page because you could put your visit with Santa. If you've got kids or grandkids or nieces and nephews, then you take part in maybe that part, or maybe you have a family member that plays Santa for the family every year. I just thought that was really cute. So another thing that I made sure that I did do is that I didn't use strictly everything Christmas related. Like right here, I just have a blank piece of paper with a Coca-Cola advertisement. And then we've got a regular red postage stamp. It's not Christmas themed, but it's still there. We've got a buttermilk advertisement, some trading stamps. Not everything is super heavily Christmas. This is not Christmas. This is not Christmas. This is not Christmas. I just didn't want it to get redundant. I didn't want to start repeating things. This has nothing to do with Christmas. It's just a map and some trading stamps. But I also wanted it to be very reminiscent of what was going on, what this notebook is supposed to represent, and the memories of your month, you know, celebrating the holidays, being close to your families, the act of gift giving, just everything that sort of comes, you know, with how Christmas is, you know, celebrated across the world. I tried not to get super religious. I didn't want to put anything super duper religious in here just because, you know, that's another thing. Christmas is celebrated differently around the world. And so I tried to be super mindful of not putting anything super duper religious in here. You know, sometimes I think there was, like this one, it's a little town of Bethlehem. I felt kind of weird putting that in there, but, you know, I think we can all sort of celebrate in that. You know, we all know where Jesus came from. So anyway, I really, 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 really had such an amazing time decorating this. I love this. Okay, so this is right here. Here's the original page. In my mind, I had a picture here, or maybe a quote, or just something super, in my mind, like I just pictured like this, it was just a cute tiny little picture frame, or a place to put a really funny quote that maybe one of your, you know, family members had said, or just something like to super, super frame out. It's really big, it's really boxy, it takes up a lot of space, but in my mind, I really wanted it to have that feeling of taking up, you know, amount of space that is important. And this thing right here is really cool. This is an actual velvet seal that was in this package. And so obviously I can feel it on my original, but I think the texture kind of comes through and you can kind of tell that the red parts of that have that velvety texture, which I really, really like. Again, another page where I kept it super, super simple and left a lot of room for your own journaling or photos. I don't know. I love how this turned out. I think it's really, really, really awesome. I used a lot of the supplies that I had in our vintage paper packs, which I think are going to do really, really well. And I don't know. I just hope you guys like it. I hope you're interested. This came from an old corporate Christmas letter. So I tore it at the bottom and you can see the texture of me just loosely tearing it. And you can see right here where it was torn as well. There was a corporate letter at the bottom of this, and I just loved the image of this so much, and I had to have it. So I put it in. I know it takes up a lot of space, but I just had to have it in there. It was so beautiful and old. Oh my God, this paper was old. This, I took up an entire sheet because I thought maybe this was a great place to have put a picture, or just, you know, just a divider of some sort. I don't know, this wrapping paper just felt really beautiful and special to me, so I felt like it deserved an entire page. You can use it for photos if you want. It just felt really lovely. And then we're coming to the end. This is part of the notebook where I kind of had the kind of feeling where maybe Christmas is coming to an end. You're in that weird space between Christmas and New Year's, and you're still kind of celebrating. Maybe you're starting to take down your Christmas decorations. You're still starting to see your family members, maybe after, you know, Christmas Day. I don't know. It's a weird space. This last page, especially, I did not want to put anything super duper Christmas related. This one says Happy New Year on it because it felt like this was the closing of the season and I wanted it to represent that. So I used a bunch of vintage papers and tickets and labels to kind of portray that. And that is it. I love, like, flipping through this again, I just absolutely love it. I love the way that this came out. I fussy cut this out of some old wrapping paper. I love that I use a bunch of different Denison labels in here. I know that everybody loves these little red labels, and I used a bunch from my personal collection in here, and they're never coming out of this notebook, so it's just great. It's just really great. I didn't want to put too many because I wanted them to, like I said, be sprinkled throughout the entire notebook. But I did use one of every size and style that I personally had in my collection to sort of share that with you guys because I know they're really popular and everybody loves them. And yeah, I absolutely love them. They're just so timeless and classic, and what better time to use them when the color red is so popular and sweet. So that is pretty much it. I just wanted to share a quick flip through. Here's another small one and another one right here of this project. It took me a long time to initially create. It took a long time for me to get it perfect with my printers. It took a long time to find the perfect cover for this, and I think it's really going to hold up really, really well. And I hope that you guys love it as much as I do. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them down below. I will leave the link to my Etsy shop in the description if you're interested in picking these one of these up. Another thing that I want to mention is think about this as a gift for maybe a family member, a mother, your mother, or anyone in your life who you feel would like to document this, a daughter or friend would like to document their December for their families or their future. I had that in my mind. It was really, really heavy on my mind. I've gotten so many messages from mothers who just don't have the time to document their lives, and they want to do it in a pretty and creative way, but they just don't have the supplies at the time. And so I created this and my previous insert with them in mind, giving you all an opportunity to put your memories down for your future generations in a way that you can go back and look at it, and it's, it's fun, it's exciting, every page is different, you want to know what's happening, you want to know what you're going to see next, and I hope that you guys are getting that same feeling as well. So consider maybe gifting this to someone that you might know that would love to document their December in this special way. So that's going to be it for me. I'm going to leave it there. If you have any questions, like always, just leave them down below. And I really want to thank you for hanging out with me. I hope you have a great day and happy holidays.